I really want to thank the organizers for this important convening and send my sincere cultural solidarity to all of you. I think one of the first things that the international community or the international level needs to do is to be in touch with and listen to the people who are working at the local level everywhere around the world. And I really value the opportunity for this dialogue. So when I think about the future and tomorrow in cultural terms, I'm also very much thinking about the present and the past. And one of the things that I've been considering a lot is, of course, how many people we are mourning, how many people we are losing in the cultural field in every region to COVID-19, from the Chinese film director Shang Kai to the Cameroonian musician Manu Dibango and many others, alas. And I think when we think about tomorrow, and imagining tomorrow, we need to remember all of them and draw strength from the works that they are bequeathing to us and honor their memories by doing a better job at the international level to support artists and to continue to promote a nourishing cultural life for everyone and to work in support and in solidarity with those of you who are doing that at the local and regional levels. For me, and the message that I am trying to convey internationally is that culture is the heart of our response to COVID-19. It is at the center, really, of that response. It's a challenge to be asked to imagine tomorrow when today is already difficult itself to imagine, and especially to do that in 5 minutes. I think we have to consider, in the words of the Canadian artist Amanda Paris, what kind of new world we want to build, which she asked recently. And her response, which I agree with, was that part of the answer lies in reflecting on what we don't want to continue. And she said, I suggest that in this new iteration, this new world, we stop devaluing artists' worth. I think this is a very important goal, and meeting goals like this, including some of the important goals that Luca mentioned, reviving the public, the whole idea of the public, all of this requires a cultural rights perspective, both to the question of how we imagine and survive today and how we build a better tomorrow. And I was pleased already to hear mention of the fact that the rights of everyone to take part in cultural life without discrimination, to freedom of artistic expression, and to benefit from scientific progress are not just nice ideas, they are guaranteed by international law. That remains true today. And everyone has a right to participate in and be consulted about policies to ensure these rights. Equally important, and perhaps I mentioned this because I'm based here in the United States, equally important, we must remember that some limitations to human rights, including cultural rights, are also accepted in international law. And I unequivocally oppose attempts to use human rights or cultural rights arguments to try to subvert public health efforts inappropriately by, for example, organizing public religious gatherings. We're experiencing this here in the US, or public protests against social distancing that are done in ways that put others at risk. Reimagining the tomorrow from a cultural rights perspective, of course, should be envisaged across several time frames. What is possible in the coming tomorrow is different than sort of tomorrow's months from now or a year from now. In the short term, we have to continue to work with urgency to guarantee financial support for artists, cultural practitioners, cultural rights defenders, and cultural institutions. This is a key message I want to bring at the international level. And I think the centrality of culture as a coping mechanism in these times offers us a very important advocacy tool to do this work. And I think of what the writer Stephen King tweeted. He tweeted, "If you think artists are useless, try to spend your quarantine without music, books, poems, movies, and paintings." We need nothing less than a global cultural plan to keep alive the cultural life which keeps us alive. And that is also a message that I want to convey. But of course, that global plan needs to be locally driven and informed, but globally supported, financed, and coordinated. In the short and medium term, we have to continue to reconfigure public cultural life, including in digital spaces, with all the wonderful initiatives you have been addressing. And we need to multiply these with offerings for different generations, different language groups, and all sectors of society, including people with disabilities. Human rights guarantees also apply online. This is very important, and public powers need to ensure access to and participation in cyberspace for all, just as in other spaces. We must confront the digital divide and find other safe ways to reimagine cultural life and build connection in conformity with public health, such as some of the popular balcony music jams we've seen in Sicily, or the sing-alongs from rooftops and windows in New York City. This is a time in which we struggle with many challenges, but also explore new possibilities and new cultural forms. Essential human rights commitments to non-discrimination and to inclusion of diverse voices, including women, minorities, many others, must be maintained even in the face of what may be some difficult budget cuts already happening and coming in the future. And I also hope we continue to support at-risk cultural rights defenders who are doing the same work we are doing in places where that puts their human rights at risk. And I can think of many, but I mentioned one, the cultural activist Osman Kavala, who remains in prison in Turkey, even in this pandemic. From the medium to the longer term, we will also be
1 minute to wrap up.
Thank you. Watching for a safer time to return to public space and shared public cultural life. And we have to commit to that renaissance when it is safe, emphasizing that as important as digital cultural life is, it is a complement, not an alternative to a public shared cultural life in public spaces when that is safe. And I think we need to build our connections with scientific experts who can advise us, who should really inform our efforts in this regard. Whatever the time frame, we must not give up on the dream of a better tomorrow based on new construction, not simply reconstruction, based on a bigger commitment to, for example, gender equality and diversity, and a bigger commitment to the whole idea of the public and public cultural life and climate-friendly ways of doing our work. As grave as the challenges are, I just want to end, just if you permit me, 30 seconds with a spirit of optimism. Optimism is not false hope. I was reminded by a woman in Afghanistan, optimism is key to survival. So let us use culture and cultural rights to foster optimism that recognizes the gravity of today, but also says, tomorrow, together, with our cultures to sustain us, in solidarity, we shall prevail. Thank you very much.